I see some people in the chat are talking about health issues tonight, and I have thrown out my back somehow. I don't really know what that term means. I don't know what the term means. Throw out your back. But let me tell you what's happened is my back is I feel like on like where your spine is in the middle on either side. There's the muscles that run down. It's like support beams on either side of your back, and my left one is when I lay down at night is spasming. So so when I lay down, gotta fix this. Every week I'm not gonna mess with it, but every week I mess with the camera. I zoom it in a little bit. I zoom it out a little bit. I didn't have time to mess with it today. Is what it is tonight. But yeah, it's just so. For the past 3 nights, I've gone to bed at 11, between 11 and 12, and woken up at 4. So that's what I did again today. And then I took a nap, a couple-hour nap, and then I just took another nap. So it's good times. I have sciatic nerve issues ever since the time that I was walking down the side of the interstate and got hit by a truck. What is funny is at the time it wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? And I had to get a lawyer. I think everybody knows this story, but if you don't know the story, I'll just kill a few minutes while everybody's getting in here. But I just bought a Chevy Astro minivan, which I always wanted. I thought Chevy Astros were super cool. I still think they're super cool. Unfortunately, they stopped making them in I think 2005. If they still made something that looked like the Chevy Astro today, I would drive one as a daily driver. I don't know why. I've always liked. It's like a big body, big square thing or whatever. I always liked them, you know. And so I bought one that was, it was like a toy car, like a spare car, like we already had. Actually, if I remember right, I don't know if it was our third car, or it might have been a fourth car. It was ridiculous, and I paid like $1,000 for it, and I got what I paid for. It was a piece of crap. I mean, it looked good, but it just had all these issues, and it had a lot of mechanical issues. And one of the things that would happen is that the speedometer, the whole speedometer, like the whole instrument cluster would go out. So that's what had happened and gone out. And so my wife and I went to dinner. We were coming back from dinner one night on December 3rd, 1998. And I ran out of gas on the side of the interstate. And so I pulled over, and it just so happened there was a 2-mile stretch where there was an exit and then another exit 2 miles away, and I ran out of gas right in the middle of those two. And there was a bridge that went over the interstate right there. We were going to climb up that and go to the bridge and try to walk somewhere, because this actually, I didn't have a cell phone at that time. So long story short, we decided to walk the mile up to the next exit, and then there was a gas station up there. We were going to go up there and call somebody. And so we were walking, and we were both like walking like on the shoulder of the road, like almost on the interstate, And Susan kept saying, "You got to get away from the interstate. You got to move over, get away from the interstate." And so anyway, she was like walking in the grass, and I was walking on the pavement as close to the grass, so all the way on the far right-hand side of the shoulder, the outside lane, and we were walking, and it was raining. It was dark at night. It was like the worst case scenario. And then we had just walked past an area where there was a guardrail on the side, And I was like, I'm not walking over there. And Susan said, don't walk next to the interstate. You got to walk on the outside of the guardrail. So I was on the outside of the guardrail and just got past it. And a pickup truck that was doing like 70, 75 miles an hour down the interstate, it had just started raining, like I said, and they hydroplaned. And so the rear came out, and then they just slid diagonally off the interstate and hit the guardrail, and then came up kind of like this is the front of the truck. They skidded like that, and the rear came over like that, and went up on the guardrail, and then basically like where the tail light was hit me right in the back. And I went flying about 30 feet off the interstate down into this giant ditch that was full of rainwater and stuff. And when I landed down there, I could not catch my breath. And I thought I couldn't breathe. I literally could not breathe. And I thought, that's it. I just died. Like, this is it. I'm going to sit down here. I mean, I was like going, and nothing was happening. And anyway, they like my wife and I were walking next to each other, you know, and then all of a sudden I was gone, and the truck went way up there, you know, and then someone saw the truck go off the road, and so another car pulled over to check on the people in the truck, and Susan ran up there, and they were like, "Hey, is everybody everybody okay?" And the truck was checking on the people in the car that pulled over was checking on the people in the truck. And then basically Susan got up there and said, "Oh my God, you just killed my husband." And they were like, "What are you talking about?" And they were like, "You hit my husband." So they had no idea they had hit me. They never saw us. They were having their own tragedy at the moment. And so Susan grabbed the cell phone because the guy who had pulled over had a cell phone, and Susan was like, "Call 911." And so they called 911, and then they called my dad, who was at work, and my dad worked like 10 miles away. And so the ambulance got there like 2 minutes before my dad. And so the ambulance, the guy that had pulled over, why I'm telling this whole story, the guy that had pulled over came down there to check on me, and he was like, "Buddy, you okay?" And I was like, "No." I was just laying in mud and water, and I couldn't move. And I was like, "I can't get up. I can't breathe." And he came down there, and he was like, "I'm not going to move you." I was like, "You got to get me out of this ditch. Get me up to the underpass because it's raining on me." And he goes, "Man, we shouldn't move you." And I go, "Listen, if I'm going to die, I don't want to die down here in this ditch." And he said, "Okay." So he helped me up. And we got up to the interstate, walked to the underpass, and then the lady who was driving the truck, her son was in the truck, and he kept wanting to talk to me, and he was like, "Hey, are you okay? What happened?" And I was like, "I'm normally a pretty nice guy. I'm not really in the mood to chat. You're going to have to give me some space right now." And so the ambulance came, and the ambulance driver got out, and they had told him what happened over the phone. And the ambulance driver came up, and he goes, "Where's the body?" And I said, "I'm the body." And he said, "We heard someone got hit, a pedestrian got hit on the interstate." I go, "Yeah, it was me." And they were like, "Jesus." And so they brought out this stretcher. They put me on a stretcher, and they strapped me up. And there were two ambulance drivers, and one was this like big, giant, muscly black dude, just, you know, big old muscly guy, right? And the other guy was this old white guy that was like 70 or something, that weighed like, 90 pounds. And so they wheeled me over to the ambulance, and they were getting ready to lift me up, and the white guy, the old man, had my head, and he was trying to lift that side, and the big dude had my feet, and I was like, "Y'all need to switch places." I said, "Because he's going to drop me. He's going to drop me on my head. Don't do that, And so, so there was all these things that were going on at the same time. My entire arm was bloody because when it hit my arm, it split my elbow open. I have a very tiny little scar there from stitches, but So there's blood coming all down here. And I was also covered in gasoline because when the truck hit the guardrail, it split open the gas tank and it sprayed gas all over me. So I'm strapped to this gurney. I can't go anywhere. They're figuring out how to put me in the ambulance. And here comes this other car racing up. It hits the brakes and gets out, and it's my dad. And he comes over there and he's like, "Oh God, what happened? What happened?" And he's smoking. And I'm like, "Dad, get away from me. I'm covered in gas. Don't set me on fire. That's going to make the day even worse." And so, long story short, then they put me in the ambulance and they were driving me to one hospital. In that hospital, the ER room was full. So they drove me to another hospital. So they were driving around. And when I was in the ambulance, I was talking to the big muscly guy, and I was like, "Listen, I'm a computer guy. I need data. I need facts. Don't just blow smoke up my hiney hole. Tell me, what's going on." And I was like, "Why is it so cold in here?" And he's like, "Because you are in shock. Your body is in shock, and it's shutting systems down." And he was checking me and he was checking my vitals. And I was like, "Am I going to be okay?" And he was like, he goes, "I don't know." He goes, "You want me to be honest with you? I don't know." He said, "You just got hit by a truck, so I don't know what's wrong." And I go, "Okay," So they took me to the ER. And then when I got there, there were people there was a guy with a gunshot and there was other people. So I had to wait there. And like I said, my arm was just stinging and the impact just split open because it hit my elbow and all that. But what I didn't realize is what it had really done is at the very last second, I had turned like that, like I'd heard the skidding, and I turned and I guess I tried to jump. I don't remember that, but my feet had come off the ground and it hit me. And so that's why it had bounced me up. So if I hadn't, and it was just reflexes, it wasn't anything, that I did intentionally. But if I hadn't have done that, then the truck would have just rolled me over, and so that I would have been dead. And anyway, so the doctor came and took X-rays, and when he came back, he looked at me and he said, "Now, who are you?" And I said, "I was the guy that got hit by the truck." And he goes, "Oh, these are the wrong X-rays." And he left for a long time, and then he came back. And then he goes, "No, these are your X-rays." And he goes, "Everything looks okay." And he goes, "I thought we'd be looking at broken ribs, all this." And I was like, "Huh?" And so it was just kind of I can't remember what he told me, but he said it was like 1 in 1,000 odds of getting hit, and then he's like, "And it's 1 in a million odds that you're gonna walk away from this," And so that was basically the gist of it. They gave me stitches in my arm, and he said, "You're going to have back issues." He said, "What's going to happen is over the next days and weeks, your back is going to swell up." And so I had a bruise. I got pictures of it somewhere, but I had a bruise about the size of a medium pizza on my back. So if you can imagine that. A bruise like that. And it changed every color of the rainbow. I never saw a bruise like that. It was yellow, it was green, it was like blue, it was red, purple, just everything. And anyway, so after all that happened, and the reason I'm telling this story is because they sent me a bill for the ambulance ride, and the bill was, I believe, $10,000. It was right at $10,000. And we were like, "Is this not covered by the lady's insurance who hit me?" And they said, and this is a direct quote, that that insurance companies are not responsible for an act of God. So if you're like sitting somewhere and a tree falls on your car, whatever, they don't necessarily, depending on what insurance you have, but they didn't have to pay. And so they said because it was an act of God, they were not going to pay the ambulance ride. And so I had to get a lawyer because I was not going to pay $10,000 for the ambulance, And by the way, I wish this was white lightning, as someone said. It's water, and I'll tell you why it's water in just a minute. So I had to get a lawyer. And I got this slick guy, and it was somebody that our family knew, and he showed up. He showed up to my house in a convertible with a 40-ounce beer in between his lap. He came in my house. He had this 40-ounce, and he was this crazy little lawyer dude. And he was like, we'll sue everybody. We'll sue the state. They shouldn't have built an interstate. We'll sue everybody. I go, I don't want to sue everybody. I just want this covered, you know. And so I had to basically do a sworn statement and all these legal paperwork. And the guy told me, looked me in the face, and he said, you might not feel like suing him now, but this is your only chance to sue these people. And he said, what's going to happen is if you have problems 10 years, 20 years down the road, it's too late. You're not going to be able to sue them to take care of this. You got to sue them now. And I said, I don't want to sue them. I just want the bills covered. And he said, okay. And so he took him to court, and they covered all the bills. I think we didn't even go to court. He just called him, and they covered the bills. And now, 20 years later, I have back issues. I have terrible, terrible back problems. It hurts me to stand up on concrete, and I mean, being an overweight guy doesn't help. But it is what it is. So, I mean, the good news is I did, what I like to tell people, they were like, when I would tell people, I say, a car hit me on the interstate and the car was totaled and I walked away. So what are you going to do? But here we are today. An old man with back problems.